sacrifice I brought to my bride. Did you hear my heart as it broke in two, while the angels cried, for your love I died, call on my bride. And I came back for you on the clouds of glory. Well, I came back for you on the clouds of glory, on the clouds of glory. You know, I plead for you. I returned for you, and now simply abide. The hour came, I returned the same way I left. Till I came back to you on the clouds of glory. Till I came back to you on the clouds of glory. So rest in my truth, my lovely, precious bride. All that remains is to simply abide. Oh, to simply abide. Till I came back to you, not according to man. Till I came back to you, not according to man. Till I came back to you, according to my plan, according to my plan, according to my plan. Thus says the Son of Man. Thus says the Son of Man. On the tree of sacrifice brought to my cross. Did you hear my heart as it broke in two, while the angels cried, for your love I died, Kalama pride. And I came back for you on the clouds of glory. Well, I came back for you on the clouds of glory, on the clouds of glory. You know, I plead for you when I'm outside. I returned for you, and now simply abide. The hour came, I returned the same way I left. Till I came back to you on the clouds of glory. Till I came back to you on the clouds of glory. So rest in my truth, my lovely, precious bride. All that remains is to simply abide. Oh, to simply abide. Till I came back to you, not according to man. Till I came back to you, not according to man. Till I came back to you, according to my plan, according to my plan, according to my plan. Thus says the Son of Man. Thus says the Son of Man.
Shalom.
Shalom.
You beat me to the punch.
I've been sitting here waiting like a little boy. Can we start yet? Can we start yet? Can we start yet?
Yeah, well, that's the attitude. That's the team spirit.
I tell you what, I love hanging out with you.
Thank you.
You
How's my sound? Good. My
you
sound is
sound
good.
great. I love that new mic, man. You got
Perfect. I like
you got
perfect.
you got that crisp sound that we like. We like
Cr-
that crisp quality.
Crisp
That's
Jewish sound.
yes, very very good. Very nice. Very
I'm
nice.
nice. I'm a nice Jewish boy. Why not?
I,
I
I wasn't gonna go there, but you went there. You're a
I
nice
I
Jewish boy.
I, I deserve the best. We all deserve the best.
We all grew up, by the way, that was something we all grew up with, at least in our generation. I heard that a thousand times a month. A nice Jewish boy. It was just like that to a nice Jewish boy. It was commonly
It
said.
was New
So
York. All New York.
very New York thing, yes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I qualify on all points. Corned beef,
Yeah.
potato knish. You like corned beef? Corned beef sandwich.
Yes. The food is the biggest thing you miss when you leave New York. If there's one thing that you just go, oh man,
Yeah, but
it's the food.
there's an old Jewish saying though: if it's not dripping with schmaltz, which is fat, it's not good cooking.
You almost wonder where'd they get all this great food from, you know?
Yeah, but that
Just
kind of thinking is crazy though. That's old.
and the sandwiches had to be this thick. I mean, it's just everything.
You remember the
Yeah.
deli, the corned beef deli? It's like
Everybody was competing with each other. It was like who was gonna make the biggest sandwich.
a pound of meat, literally a
Crazy.
pound.
They couldn't give it away fast enough.
That's why they had an ambulance parked outside the restaurant.
You
I'm
know
not
what I love?
joking. I'm not
I tell
joking.
you what.
There was a wait a second. There was a food bar. There was a food bar in Plantation, Sunrise, South Florida, which is all transplanted New Yorkers. And Rivka and I used to eat there when we were a little less careful of our food intake. And that was an all-you-can-eat bar. And there were literally people who would sit there all day, like from morning to night, eating. And as Yahuwah lives, this is not a joke. There was an ambulance parked, waiting for someone to plots
Hmm.
because they had no autocontrol. Could you imagine an ambulance parked outside a restaurant, like because all the elderly Jewish ladies are trying to get the most they can get for their $7.99?
Yes. The thing
Crazy.
is that yes, I believe it because I've seen it. So yes, I believe it. Unfortunately, it's true.
But I
It
mean,
is true.
I repented of those days. If I ate like that now, you know the rest of the story. Anyway, let's talk about some serious things, Apostle
Well,
Peter.
there's a
The
lot of serious things going on in the world. Which one you want to talk about?
Well, I don't know how the Ruach's going to lead on this one, but what's happening around us in the Middle East. I
Hmm.
have thoughts. Everybody has thoughts.
Yes.
Um, but one thing that I know, and I believe Scripture, that all prophecy has been fulfilled, and I think we need as believers to learn the difference between prophecy and what you guys talk about all the time, which is recurring patterns. Like there's
Yes.
always going to be a judgment onto Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
There's always going to be a despot.
Thank you.
There's always going to be a king. This does not. You cannot. And I've made this error for many years until I came out of futurist mentality. This is the end of the world. This is the final war. No, there is no final war. There is no end of the world because Yahuwah sees things differently. All that stuff took place at the end of the age. Yahuwah didn't lie. The Rome, the temple, the Pharisaic, Judaic
Mhm.
approach, all that stuff took place at the end of the age, which makes it prophecy. Okay,
Right.
the end of the Adamic age, and now we're in the new heaven and earth. That doesn't mean the new heaven and earth is peace, tranquility, no war, lying down with the lamb. Yahuwah sees it from a totally different point
Depends
of
on how
view.
you compare it. What are you
If you
comparing
look,
it?
if I give you an example, the lion lying down with the lamb scripture in Isaiah 11, read the whole context of Isaiah 11, where the lion lies down with the lamb. The context is Judah and Ephraim and their civil war, and the lion lies down with the lamb where? In the body of Yahusha, And the body of Yahusha is the New Jerusalem. And then when we leave this body, we enter the literal New Jerusalem, the mother of us all. So if you do not allow a, a paradigm shift, then
Yeah.
the average believer will have a hard time understanding the difference between current events versus prophecy. Current events, the poor, like I think you said that a few broadcasts back. The poor you will always have with us, right?
Yes.
Adolf Hitler's, Mussolini's, Vladimir Lenin's, you will always have with us. By the way, and I'm going to show you how we can get caught up in stuff. One thing that I really despise is Holocaust deniers for obvious reasons. I despise that when you deny the Holocaust. But guess what? There are other denials. Did you know? You probably did because you're a student of history. In Bolshevik Russia, they killed 16 million Russian Orthodox Christians.
At
16
least.
million.
At
16.
least.
Okay. So my point is none of this is prophecy. Why? Because Yahusha said, I'm going to bring the approach of the Tanakh with the wickedness and leaven to an end. Now, everything that can be shaken has been shaken. And what remains is you, me, and the Father, and the kingdom that he has come to establish. I think it took me 44 years not to freak out and to learn that current events is not prophecy fulfilled, but our natural inclination is to assume the worst. Your thoughts?
Well, I think of several things that have happened just in our lifetimes that we can all point to, or within the historical record that we can touch. In other words, within a couple of generations back, and so forth. One of the things that we see is in each epoch or era, if you will, a smaller epoch, not meaning the big epochs, but the smaller eras that we see sort of the repeat pattern. And we do usually have despots, especially multiple of them. I think of when you mentioned Russian persecution and the numbers that died there, I was also thinking about Mao Zedong and the number that was killed under that regime was ridiculous. Mussolini was another one that did horrific damage. How about all the I couldn't remember the names of the African leaders, but there were several that I remember as I was growing up hearing about, and just some of the I think Idi Amin or other names that came up during news and what have you about deaths and murders and so forth and so on. So when you start looking back over the historical record, what you see is in fact a repeat pattern. And just as the poor you will have with you always, and you can always do unto them good as you see fit, why will you always have them? Why did he declare that? That's something for you to think about.
Part of our growth, part of our process.
Yeah, because that's not something people think of as something that's going to be for continuous. They think that there's going to be an end to this. There's going to be an end when you put an end to it. There's going to be an end when you put it. That's why he said they're there for you to do good to them always. You could always solve that whenever you want. You can always do things about things whenever you want to. So those are there for every generation to deal with. And I believe that the notion, if I may complete this last thought, I believe that the notion that some generation remotely gets to skip. I mean, I'm just thinking from the standpoint of, going through 40 to 70 AD myself, like physically being there, going through the whole process. And then the notion that some remote generation 2,000 years later is going to be sitting on cushions, barely moving their butts. I'm not being mean. I'm just being honest.
I agree.
Okay. And somehow, without having to go through anything that we are having to endure from 40 to 70, right, with the persecution, with literally death threats, and finally, many of them did die, gave their lives rather than renounce or back up, and somehow posting something on Facebook puts you right in there with that group,
right? And we're in other words, martyrs. Yahuwah is going to honor martyrs in every generation. Through the thlipsis. the tribulation, like you say, choices
Yes.
of every generation, he's going to honor the martyrs. So the same way the poor you always have with you, guess
Yes.
what? The martyrs. So
The
what's going
martyr.
on? What's going on in Iran
Oh,
from a heavenly perspective? Yahuwah is looking for saints that he will be able to honor, not with the purple heart, but as a martyro. Because we talk about evangelism, and the Greek word for martyr, as you know, is witnesses, which is the Hebrew equivalent of aid or edah, witness, ed. So if your name is Ed, ed, that means you're a witness. It means you're a witness for Yahweh. So if none of this is prophecy, but if it's our not escaping the trials of life, which work patience, which work long suffering, which brings out the fruit of the spirit, it crushes the oil, just
that's
like
right.
just like the olives are crushed in the
Yep.
garden in
How many
Gethsemane.
analogies did he give us like this?
And what does the crushing of the olives do? It brings forth new oil, and the new oil is put into new wineskins. So I've come to understand that this world will never come to an end. That's a lie. It's an absolute lie, which means you could have a World War VII, World War X. Armageddon was Armageddon, but that also brings
World
up
War Seven.
another interesting point, which is if history repeats itself, right? And those who don't learn from it are condemned to be players and
Doomed to repeat it. That's right.
victims of history rather than conquerors through the process of thlipsis.
Correct.
If that's true, and it is, then I submit to you that our country, our beloved country, which I love, I believe everybody listening to this broadcast in one form or another is a patriot that's from the U.S. We love this country. Um, is like unto Rome. In other words, what I see, this aggression, okay, this aggression to do whatever Israel wants. Now, when we're talking about Israel, we're not talking about Peter Martinez. We're not talking about folks who love Yahuwah and are humble to be led by his ruach. I'm talking about political propagandists who how many countries have they attacked? 8. So if somebody has a water balloon in the corner, right? And the Israel Mossad finds out that they have a water balloon, that's a threat to Israel. So since that's a threat to Israel, they have to send the army to eradicate the person in the corner with a water balloon. You get my point? So there's paranoia, and then they suck us into their war. Who is it? This is not going to help us with universal health care. It's not going to help us with checking out at the grocery store, lowering prices. This is going to help only one client state.
Yeah.
It's only going to help one people, and I'm sorry. So, and I'll let you comment. I know you have a lot of comments, but the point is, these are the same people that the master Yahusha threw out in 70 A.D. Hello. So in other words, they came back, didn't they, Peter? These are the same people that were thrown out. They were
did.
So I love. Let me take this further because this is important. I have family in Israel. My father wanted to volunteer for the Tzvi, the Haganah, which is they call the IDF, but it actually is a different name in Hebrew. I don't remember it offhand. Tzvi, Leomi, Haganah, something like that. Tzahal. The acronym is Tzahal. He wanted to fight. They said, get out of the country. You're 65 years old. You're too old. So this Zionist mentality, and this is very tricky because Yahuwah is a Zionist. He lives in Zion. We're Zionists because we're born of the Spirit. But then there's a fake kind of Zionism. So what's going on in the Middle East? Is we are being sucked into another foreign war. And if it's their war, if it's Israel's war, let their boys and girls die. Why do our boys and girls have to die for Israel? We're sending them $350 billion a year. You think they can buy their own weapons and train their own soldiers? I'll stop there. But the point is, if this is the case, then one of these two countries, and I love the United States with all my heart, soul, it gave shelter to my immigrant parents who escaped the Nazis. I love this country. I wouldn't even be here without this country. I was born in this country. One of us is Rome. The United States is 70 AD Rome, or Israel in the Middle East is 70 AD. Because remember, there has to be a Rome. If history repeats itself, who is modern Rome? It's not the clown sitting on St. Peter's Square. Where is the nation of Rome today, or the spirit of Rome, that just start wars, conquer? We're always under. It's a persecution complex, and so we have to lash out. We don't wait till we're attacked. Oh no, we have to lash out. The fact that Iran can reach the shores of the United States with a ballistic missile, in this case intercontinental, it's a lie. It is a propaganda. It's propaganda. So I don't know what context this is, but I only approach it from a biblical context. A war should be fought in defense and not for client states. So to me, if you're right, and you are, and I'm right, and I am, and history repeats itself, then there has to be a Rome in this equation.
Great, a lot of great observations. I wrote a few things down.
Go ahead.
First of all, one thing I want to mention really quickly is that we adopted many, many pagan beliefs and concepts without knowing it. So as you dissect backward, you're going to see infiltrations that occurred in other centuries, and we carried forward certain things in our beliefs, like Elysium and other ideas that came from pagan doctrines and beliefs, and they got mixed in because they were trying to assimilate those people into the Roman Catholic Church. So the way they did that was compromise, and that compromise got essentially codified, if you will, right? In many ways. So there's still people to this day that eat fish on Friday. So just understand that this is part of what we're also dealing with as well. I just wanted to throw that out there so that everybody, as you're sort of examining things, you're going, where did this come from? Don't be surprised if you end up finding out certain things have some very nefarious origins. And that's because through the centuries, we've been under attack in an attempt to essentially continue to poison ourselves and pollute ourselves with that which is abominable. So just something for everyone to note. What
are your thoughts about fighting a war for Israel?
Okay, well, I want to get to that real quick. I'm getting to that.
Or how does this benefit us? How does this war benefit us?
So comparatively, historically, because I'm a historian and I love history, I love teaching history. The Pax Romana, of course, was a specific known peace that they put on the world. Of course, they did it at the edge of the sword. So again, the Pax Romanos, which you're talking about, the Roman peace, which was really basically peace under threat. So that was basically it. We did have an example of 250 years of the Pax Takugama, which was out of Japan. And the East was quite peaceful until it was essentially invaded. And then now since subsequently had supposedly, the Pax Americana, which the Pax Americana looks an awful lot like the Pax Romano, because it basically is nonstop war. The Pax Romano was war every so many decades. It wasn't even a decade without war. I think maybe 2 at the most. And the United States is following the exact same pattern. They can't seem to go without, in 250 years of history, the United States can't go 20 years without a war.
They have to feed the military-industrial complex.
Have not gone 20 years without a war of some sort. If you go back all the way through, back to 1776, and just march forward, you're going to find a war within 20 years every time. Well, that's scary, because that tells you that there's a very powerful force that's operating in government as a cyclical force that keeps bringing us to these places. So that's something that you can't now look and pretend away. Once there's a pattern established, you've got no choice but to look at the pattern, and the pattern continues.
Now, are we talking about the elite? Are we talking about Albert Pike theory? What are we talking about here?
We're talking about the rhythms of the way the world works. And regardless of whether or not you buy the latest thing, which is the whole Albert Pike thing, That's the latest thing. In the 1800s, they had some other stuff going on. In the 1700s, they had some other stuff going on. In the 1600s, they were all talking about sabotage Sevi and all this other nonsense. In the 15, I mean, every pick a generation, pick a century, and I'll tell you crazies that were going on in that century that were literally world level events that people were affected by, and we historically know about, but experiencing it is different. And we're going to be the ones written about in 100 years, and they're going to go, wow, did they go loopy back then? You know, why? Oh, they believe this and they believe that, and 100 years went by, and all those people who thought any minute now are going to look like complete buffoons, as they do now.
But how about okay? I mean, there's a lot to cover here. We'll probably miss a lot of it. But how about lying to people? If you vote for me, I will end all foreign wars, particularly the Middle East. In other words, we're not going to do another Iraq. We're not going to do another whatever, Libya. I mean, it's just, it never ends, and these recurring patterns.
It doesn't.
Before you comment, here's what I understand, because I refuse to see things any other way without first checking scripture or first checking the Ruach HaKadosh. So in the end, it comes down to man's hearts do not change. And before kingdoms change, men's hearts must change. Everybody's worried about where's the peace if we're in the new heaven and new earth, and if Messiah has returned, where are the peace? First of all, Yahuwah didn't promise you peace. He said, there is no peace, saith my Yahuwah, to the wicked. There is no peace, okay? So you've got to become one of his children to begin to experience peace, because those are the only ones that are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. Those are when we bring men and women to Messiah, who they call Christ. Those are the peacemakers. So the whole spiritual aspect is void here. And so when we get past the Illuminati, when we get past
what you don't have,
the Club of Rome, when we get past the Rothschilds, we get past, like you said, we go further back.
Mm-hmm.
We come back to this. And that's what you've been talking about on Shabbat over the past. This has not changed.
Nope.
Before there was a Rothschild, okay? If my coffee is not made properly, it's the fault of the Rothschilds. If my air condition goes out, it's the Rothschilds. Okay, we're Yahuwah's representatives. We cannot represent our own foolishness or our own mind. It says, trust in Yahuwah with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, Proverbs 3, but in all your ways acknowledge him. So I've got to approach what I'm hearing through, okay, Yahuwah, what do you say about this mess? And he'll say the same thing. The heart hasn't changed. It manifests in different ways.
It manifests in different ways, but it hasn't changed.
No.
So you're dealing with the same conditions, watch this now, that you would have been dealing with 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago. Wait a minute. You mean you're going through the same testing process? Why, yes. You mean you could lose your life the same way? Why, yes. And if you were only looking at certain parts of the world, you might see a heightened level of persecution, where other parts of the earth, there wasn't any. That was always going on at the same time. We're only looking at small slivers when we're looking at historical records. We're not usually looking at the entirety of Earth at the same time. How many of you, when you did your historical review, I can say this because we do this here at New Kingdom with our young people, but how many of you did a comparative of the historical record from the East and the West going on at the same time? If you did, you'd like, whoa, there's a lot of world going on. A lot more world than we thought. You get very narrow with European or whatever history record you like.
Right.
But we lose a lot of context, right? And as a result, we get very narrow-minded. This is where it's just like now, if you look at only news in your neighborhood, you don't know what's going on all over the world. You need to know a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit about what's going on around the world.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, for sure. So Yahusha said that the kingdom of Yahuwah is within you, and the kingdom does not come with observation. So anything you could observe, who's right? Russia, Poland, NATO, Shmedo, who's right? The answer is the kingdom of Yahuwah does not come with observation. So when people say to me, how do you know Messiah returned? And since the Father slept, everything's the same. That's right, because the kingdom of Yahuwah comes, as you've been saying these last few Shabbats, when men's hearts change, the kingdom changes and the kingdom is expanded. But
Yes.
until men's hearts change, Yahuwah will not give one iota of real change. He will not grant one. There is no peace, saith my Yahuwah, to the wicked.
They're out of phase. So
who's
phase
wicked?
shift.
Who's wicked? Is it Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Yes. Who's wicked? Kamala Harris or the first gentleman, the second gentleman, Dan Inhofe? Yes. Men's hearts that are given to Yahuwah on the altar of humility and crying out for mercy are few and far between. It's worse than a straight and narrow gate. Is almost no road. That's how narrow it is. It's like the gutter. It's like the gutter. The road to the kingdom. The road to the kingdom is like a gutter in a bowling alley.
Listen,
you ever see the size of a gutter in a bowling alley?
The estimates, the gutter in a bowling alley is pretty narrow, and it's a one-off. You better be walking one single file. And let me tell you, the road to Noah's house was probably pretty narrow. The road out of Sodom and Gomorrah, man, there was only 2 people leaving, 3 people leaving. I mean, so when we're looking for these broad ways, we get ourselves in a lot of trouble, and that's why I think a lot of people are realizing that. The Facebook stop off, which I see a lot of people stopped off there, and that was it. Their growth stopped. You discovered a couple of things, and your growth stopped. Your growth will never progress as long as you are not operating in your gifting, your calling.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How do you see the Israel connection in all this? Because to me, it's very alarming as a Jewish person that they equate your arms of love to Israel with that, okay? They equate the restoration and regathering of the 2 houses, which is the finished work of Messiah gathering the 12 tribes.
So we need to blow things up.
James 1:1. So in other words, we've had discussions, and I do want to hear what you have to say. We've had discussions in our family, in our ministry. It's like, wait a second. I'll go further than that. Etsy and other platforms, I believe, are censoring us. And I think you've mentioned this before, because when they understand Israel is behind a lot of U.S. kids dying for their agenda, not our agenda, right? They censor broadcasts and ministries with the name Israel. So we haven't changed anything, and we're not going to, but we have thought about, wait a second, let's consider, because we don't mind the persecution that comes for being Israel, but there is a certain amount of censorship, and it has kind of like a ripple effect. So, what is your thoughts? Plain talk, as plain as we can talk, about modern day Israel and what they're doing and how they affect where we live and what's going on they're going on right now in the Middle East.
Well, I think anybody that's followed the weekly news update, I've been doing it now almost 4 years, and I've been pretty consistent in that we are just not on board with any military aggressive state, doesn't matter which it is, and Israel certainly qualifies as a military aggressive state. And then you add in the elements where they're adding in sort of this sort of overlay, like we have sort of the high ground. That interview with Mike Huckabee is a great example of the absolutely atrocious thinking that is now justifying behavior that I think needs to come under serious scrutiny. So, no, I don't endorse that. I don't endorse the concept that many people seem to be rah-rahing, and it goes contrary to Scripture. So you've got serious scriptural issues. You've got splashback that's going on as a result of association, like you said. Oh my goodness, you keep Shabbat, you must be one of them. And I think that was also part of the plan. I think that's also part of the persecution that we have to endure. I think that's always been the case. I think it was the case in 70 AD. I think that there were horrific angers toward people in the Middle East at that time. And there were believers, good people, honestly, you set apart people of Yahuwah that were also intermingled in that and had to deal with the reality that was being crushed. So here we go again, is what I see. It's the same setup that we saw back then, we're seeing now. And in a large part for the same reasons. It's as if we're just doing again a repeat. We talk about this all the time. It's almost as if that's the only authorized pathway they have. Just keep repeating the same cycle, and it takes a few generations for it to go through its entire machinations, and new players show up with new tools and new gimmicks, but it's all the same game.
There's certain levels of evil, and then there's the added element of genocide, ethnic cleansing. In other words, people like to play word salad games. Oh, this is ethnic cleansing. This is not. What we did to the Native American. No, that's not ethnic. But either way, let me show you. Let me show you. And before I get your answer, with the ethnic cleansing part of this equation,
Mm-hmm.
there was a gentleman named Rabbi Meir Kahana. You've heard of him. He was a founder of the Jewish Defense League, and he was also the founder of the Kach political party in Israel. And when I was a young teenager in college, I actually joined the Jewish Defense League, and I was one of his bodyguards when he spoke at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Teaneck, New Jersey, just to show you how far I've come. And I was a Zionist to the core. But make a long story short, Rabbi Kahana proposed in the 1980s, if we don't deport all the Palestinians now, we're not going to have a Jewish state. It's going to be a Palestinian state. They multiply faster than we do. They multiply quicker than we do. So his plan was not to kill or harm any Palestinians. His plan was to simply get them out while we can, because in 30 years, we're going to have 70 million of them and about 20, 30 million of us. Okay. So for that political speech, hear me out here. And I'm not taking sides. I'm trying to make a point. For that political speech, he was jailed, and the Kach party was declared illegal, just for the thought of transporting Palestinians out of the West Bank. Now we've gone from thinking to that same government that jailed Meir Kahana are now committing mass murder and blaming it on self-defense. Everything is self-defense. If there's somebody with a water balloon in the corner getting ready to throw a water balloon, we got to murder them and their entire family. Why? It's self-defense. They know how to play the victim. Oh, that state knows how to play the victim real good. I'm done.
All right, so you take the 1860s to the 1890s, you'd have Jesse James, you got gunslingers, you got all kinds of things, post-Civil War era, which really was a redevelopment era. A lot of wild, crazy behavior was documented. And then the world settled down with a more industrial age that came in. We also saw the Roaring 20s when, oh my goodness, we were quote unquote tripping the light fantastic and having nothing but roaring parties, right? And bootlegging and all kinds of things. The concept or ideals of marriage and family were literally thrown out the window. It was a complete reversal of what was considered normal. And many people don't realize that this was a part of America and part of Americana. Make America Great Again. Well, that was part of it. And then 1929, we get our butts kicked out there, figuring out how money actually works, made the public enemy number one, and our gold stolen from us, and you guys get put on the public dole. So all kinds of things happen inside that. And then we hit the 50s. In the 50s, everybody's doing Leave It to Beaver and let's all Ozzie and Harriet, and let's all pretend that that the world's just this plastic perfect place where we all live in a suburb. And this picture is being emanated, if you will, this Norman Rockwell painting that is being emanated from the 50s and the early 60s, right? So we went through that era, and then right back to riots in the streets, and back to the picture of civil rights, and off we went to the Vietnam War. And so when you look at this little time period, just 1860 to 1960, if you just take a look at that 100-year period, what you'd see is a roller coaster ride. And one of the things that I think that we all ignore is the fact that there's this thing called creeps. Now, remember in the scripture, he told us that you had authority over everything that creepeth upon the earth. Well, that includes stories. That includes, historical records. They creep too. There's things called mission creep. And how many ideas will creep? So what is he trying to do? He's trying to get us to stay on target. Here's a couple things you might want to think about. One, there was a time period where magic, and I mean real magic, like Enochian magic, these guys would do weird stuff, Janus and Jambres kind of guys. Okay. That was real. That was Earth. That was our realm. Like, that was where we lived. It was crazy. Okay. And it wasn't just there, it was everywhere. On top of that, you had giants eating people openly. It wasn't even hidden. There's a reason why David killed, Goliath and his 4 brothers, and they attacked it. There's a reason for this. They were voracious eaters of humans. Okay, they were cannibals, open cannibals. They didn't even hide it, and so it was horrific what the world was living under. The kind of boot that was over man. Okay, and you don't have in front of you now. You have behind you that fervent heat that was described in Peter. That's behind you now. If you go look around the earth, you'll see the evidence of it. There's a Sahara Desert now. That ought to tell you something. Okay, so the fact is that we are living in a time comparatively that would be the lion and lamb laying down together compared to what we went through. This is nothing. What we are dealing with is the aftermath, the afterglow of what really rough walk through 6,000 years, let me tell you. And so this right now seems to me like a whole lot of play acting, a whole lot of stage acting, and theatrics.
But could you address the Israel connection?
And so the Israel connection is part of that theatrics. This whole Greater Israel project, this whole concept that you kept. I mean, there's all kinds of objections to that. Are you kidding me? You're talking about affecting entire areas. Now, it'd be one thing if you won them over because you behaved so amazingly and they all fell in love with you and they all joined and that grew to that. That'd be one way to do it. But if you're talking about just sending tanks out, okay, and that's your plan, you're not Joshua, and this is not the invasion of the Canaanites. And I think trying to transpose that thinking process into modern events is a very dangerous thinking process that causes a lot of death.
Well, how about this? The Greater Israel idea was actually a heavenly mandate to Joshua. Go and conquer all the land. When he failed to do that, I don't see any mulligans where Yahuwah said, now, 3,000 years in the future or 100,000 years in the future, when you have nukes and ballistic missiles.
We're going to do it again.
Try again. Try again, because
that's my problem, guys.
I am Yahuwah, and I love the gays, the lesbians, the trannies. I love the crooked politicians in Israel so much that I'm going to give you a do-over. And now I want you to swallow men, women, and children in Syria, Lebanon, everywhere you find them, because Joshua messed up, but I love you so much. And we are, that's our special ally. Wait a second. Now I'm going to go to something else. That's our special ally. So that's not Yahuwah talking. That's the Greater Israel, man's flesh talking. Now, Yahuwah, here's a question for you, or statement/question. Name me, and I listen. I have family in Israel, so all y'all shut up. I have family in Israel. I have cousins in Israel. I don't want anything bad for them. I love the people. I'm talking about the crooked, wicked, genocidal.
I think we all can understand that, right?
Apartheid.
We all
apartheid
know the government and people.
We understand. Wait a second. Let me ask you a question. Can you, as an American, forget this is our country as far as I'm concerned? Well, heaven's our real country, but
that's right
for now. So what other country, and I'm serious, this is a serious question, what other country have we gone to war with and for more than 3, 4, 5 times in our 250-year history?
With or for?
With or for?
Great Britain.
How many
Um,
times?
well, at least 5 times.
And who else?
Well, besides Great Britain, probably nobody else.
Israel.
Israel's it. But then you could argue, are we talking about an extension of the same thing?
But when we went to war with Great Britain, at least a few of those times, there was some national interest.
Yes.
What is the national interest in doing what we're doing now? In other words,
I don't know.
What is the interest?
I said that plainly on our broadcast.
So then, consequently, who runs who's the dog and who's the tail?
It appears that somebody sent the U.S. to do their dirty work. It just looks that way. Now, whether it's true or not, we don't know. These things tend to shake out. But early reading, yeah, it looks to me like, and I think a lot of people are reading it that way on this end of the pond.
You can't even get past
what you have over there.
You can't even get past the Jeffrey Epstein files without the Mossad connection. Who was Ghislaine Maxwell? She was the daughter of the founder of Mossad. Now, Trump released the Kennedy documents, at least some of them, and lo and behold, Israel was involved at Dealey Plaza. What the? Hello?
Nothing new there. That's not news.
Israel in 1963, they're struggling for their newborn survival, and they have a connection to Dealey Plaza. I mean, listen, this is coming from a Jewish person who loves Israel. I love the land of Israel. I love the people of Israel. But I'm an honest broker, dude.
Yeah, no, but that was a generation ago too. You know, we got to be careful with bringing forward from 1963, right? That's the same attitude that's happening with reparations, where people are like, hey, back here in 1862, your people did this. Yeah, but those are those people. And these are descendants. Yes, that's true. They are descendants, but you're kind of, we have to be careful with this lumping, right? So this is in defense of our friends in Israel.
That's true.
They have to make a decision today.
That's true, by the way, but that doesn't square with Matthew 23, because Yahuwah did reparations. He says
this is true, and I'm not talking about the way that he does it. I'm talking about the way we do it. His hand is different than our hand, right? Because he punishes to the third and fourth generation.
Yeah.
But my point is that it is up to Israel today, the Israel of today, and the people of today, to stop living in a past or dreaming of a future.
That's right.
And deal with today and say, is this the Israel we are projecting today? That's a question. Is this the picture we wanted to project? Is this the message that we were sending to the world?
And then they wonder why they have no friends.
I mean, it's a hard question, but it's not.
Airplanes on hospitals, airplanes on daycare centers. Listen, people are not stupid. And then they wonder why they have no friends.
Not winning any friends doing this, no. And Israel used to win friends in many ways. One of the ways that they used to win friends, guys, and they were famous for this. Israel was usually the first ones in during a disaster. It didn't matter what country it was.
That's true.
Okay, I want to tell you this just to the positive side. Okay, Israel first ones in when there was a disaster.
What years? Excuse me. What years were that? 60s.
Okay. Well,
no. I'm asking.
The 70s. I was going to say, in my recollection, between the 70s and the early 2000s, this stayed the norm. Okay, and then it shifted, but which we can talk about why. But the fact is that for a long time, if this was standard policy, if there was an emergency in the earth, the Israelis were very fast to respond. If there were problems being solved, there were, very solution-oriented people. So we love this, and we want to encourage that, right? We want to celebrate the beautiful people that are there, because they have amazing brilliance and they're geniuses, and there's so many positives that are just there. But you can't take positives and say that wipes out everything else. No, it doesn't. It creates a balance. It creates a discussion. But the fact is that there are no super people. There's no super entitlement. And the concept of super entitlement is exactly the reason why we have wars. Anytime people start beginning to believe that the blue team is better than the red team, or the red team is better than the blue team, it doesn't matter who the blue or the red team are anymore now, because now we're going to have bloodshed. This is going back to the same tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You're the good guy. I'm the bad guy. I'm right. You're wrong. Good, evil. Only Yahuwah can wield that tree. If we all pursue wisdom, all wars stop. Selah.
So the concept of the greater Israel is not scriptural because Yahuwah gave us a chance and he gave the commission to a single individual in the
Amen.
days of Joshua, but
Coming.
not to David Ben Gurion, not
No.
to Ehud Barak,
No.
not to Naphtali Bennett. They have no right to pillage, to steal, to rape, to commit genocide, to try to fulfill biblical prophecy. See, that's the problem with people who
No, but you
believe.
gotta admit, it's a great
But
PR.
wait.
campaign.
But that's the problem with people who believe that they can take a hand in fulfilling biblical prophecy, or
Yes.
that prophecy is being fulfilled today. If Yahusha didn't lie to us in Luke 21, verses 21 and 22, that all that is written was fulfilled in the first century. Therefore, what we see today is pattern, which
Pattern.
confirms everything you've taught from Portal, Arizona. It's not prophecy. But if you think it's prophecy, like the leadership of Zionist Israel does, you're going to take matters into your own hand and force death, force darkness, force suffering, force displacement, because every clown involved with that political theater believes they're fulfilling prophecy.
Well,
Peter,
sure, because
that's the danger of futurism. That's the danger of futurism.
Not knowing that you're hearing original sound versus echo is a big deal. One more time. Not knowing if you're hearing original sound versus echo is a big deal. Okay. So what you're seeing now is the echo, the residual continuous pattern that was established and conquered by Yahuwah in the earth. And now he's letting you see it firsthand. So you get to see it in your lifetime, just like they got to see it in their lifetime. And yes, he will defeat the enemy. Yes, he will reign. Yes, he will conquer them. He always does. But he's dramatic about it. There's always the drama. You got to go through the dramatic part. Why? Because this is a full body experience, in case you haven't figured this out. He wants you completely involved. It's called all in or all out. There's a reason for this. This entire experience in this bowl, the 7-continent bowl you're living in, okay? The reason for it, it's called the threshing floor. It's meant to see who is and who isn't. Some people are nothing but non-player characters. They're only here to be stuffing around you. He says so. He makes it clear. He says some people I only made just for judgment.
Troublemakers.
Just for that. Why? Why are you coloring the world with this? I want to put my children through a gauntlet.
Professional troublemakers.
We have to go through a gauntlet of tribulation through much what? Tribulation do you enter the kingdom, which, by the way, cometh not with observation. So again, this echo is meant to tell you the flesh is not the answer.
Talking about
the longer you keep looking at flesh, you're going to keep getting deceived. Go ahead.
Talking about the echo. When did we first hear the echo that Iran is 1 week away, 1 year away?
Oh, 1990 something.
6 months away from a nuclear weapon. Now, that was when?
The chart. Remember the charts at the UN? Those go back to the 1990s, guys.
That was Iraq. But how many years has Benjamin not belonged to Yahoo? Been warning us that Iran is 1 week. Watch this. 1 week. No, wait a second. 1 month. No, wait. 1 year. And we better act now to do Israel's bidding. It's because if we're real friends, we can't let them down, because Iraq is months away. Do you realize 45 years later, they still have no nuclear weapons?
Not only that, but something else, guys. Just you're hitting Israel pretty hard, and maybe they deserve it.
They do. They weren't. I'm not some non-participant. I have family there. Everybody, shut up.
I have family there too. I have friends there too, and I feel the same way. But I also know that Israel wasn't alone. There are other players in that region that also, very quietly, okay, they're not jumping in the front of this, but they very much were involved in this, and so. There are other countries that have their own agendas, and they're also involved
Right, but
quietly.
how many wars have we fought for Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. Depends on how you look at
How
which
many
war are you talking about. Gulf War?
how many wars has the government of Lebanon convinced us to fight for them?
Your point is well made. In other words,
There's an undue influence. That's the
our connection to Israel most
93% of our
certainly. Yeah.
Congress, 93% of our Congress follow the money, takes money from AIPAC, and they go for free visits to Jerusalem, and they're treated like royalty in the King David Hotel. They're given presidential suites. Follow the money, guys.
So what does that
Follow
say
the
for
money.
us as the household of faith? What is our responsibility
Kadosh, separate.
in that kind of scenario? Again, it's never changed. It's always been this way. This has been the same Roman what do you call it, emissaries and entourages and what do you call those people that go between anyway? They've been sending people for that kind of nonsense forever, and it's always been Yahuwah has always had his people set apart, never involved in any of that. So the whole trying to change trying to change the government by joining the government, that didn't work. A lot of people tried that failed. Okay, and they're finding out that the correct way to walk, as you just said, is kadosh, set apart. You'll find the words you pray coming out of the mouth of a politician. Watch this now. You'll find things that you stood in the kadosh place praying for, and then suddenly some politician over there or some governor or some president is doing the thing you prayed for. Now, which one's in charge? Who's wagging who, right? So this is a world of the Ruach, and those who stay in the things of the Spirit rule. Those who go into the flesh drool like dogs. You want to rule? You need to stay in the Ruach and let them drool over the nonsense. And guess what? Next thing you know, they'll be saying it. They'll say the very things that you were saying in quiet in the public.
Right, and that's very profound. And something else though, oh man, I hate when that happens. That's the situation with Israel. I'm gonna let you go because I'm gonna be here for 2 years trying to remember what I say, what I just said. So this is a good time for you to take advantage of the opportunity.
Well, I want to encourage those of you. We'll take a quick moment here.
Oh no, I got it. I'm sorry. I got it.
Okay.
I knew it. So the root of this problem here, and I like you said, we could only deal with kadosh, being set apart, not being sucked up into their theater. That's why it's called theater, political theater, army theater, naval theater. Okay.
Theater of operations.
But I can only minister to the body of Yahusha because they're the only ones that, getting back to what you're saying, that have the ruach,
right,
to discern right from wrong. Okay.
Right.
So, but here's my challenge to the body of Yahusha. That's the only people that I have a voice to.
Okay.
This is what happens when you do not learn the difference between trusting the word and prophecy fulfilled by the end of the first century when the temple was destroyed, the end of the old heaven and earth, versus patterns. What we're seeing now, as Peter says like 10 million times, in patterns to get you to understand patterns. Because all these players believe that they are creating prophecy. Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog. It's happening now. Antichrist. When? Right now.
It's all some pretty low.
What about the false prophet? Well, let's see if
who's going to play false prophet? Who do we got?
If Iran attacks the United States, let's find the false prophet. See, this 70 AD stuff is not just a hobby horse. It will train you. It will train you to stop calling patterns, thinking that we can create prophecy. We cannot create man. We cannot create woman. We cannot create the Garden of Eden. We cannot create anything that is sovereign to Yahuwah. And so we've got to see these things as pattern. And when we see these things as pattern, we learn not to what? Not to panic. Right?
That is correct.
We learn not to panic.
You know, the wicked are what is twisted. So the word wick or wicked comes from the same place and means it's essentially a twisting. So fear is a twist of faith. It's faith in your enemy's ability to hurt you more than your king's ability to save you. That's what fear is. So wicked is the twisting of the word. It's what our enemy does. You just twist the word. Hath Yahuwah really said, right? Constantly twist the word, right? Okay, so what do? We spend all this time kind of untwisting things. What are you guys finding out? We got to untwist this thing. And what do we find out? Oh, my goodness, we were lied to. No kidding. Like wipe that silly look off your face. So now read this verse again. The wicked are destroyed by the brightness of the king's coming. So what is he saying? It's code. It's a statement that you have to decode. Wicked is twisted thinking. And when the brightness, intelligence concerning the king's coming hits your little puny brain, you're going to unscramble a few things. The end.
Perfect. So like literal coming, believing in his literal coming.
Yes, unscrambles everything else.
With the timestamp that he put himself under constraint to show you that he can predict the future, not we can. Will free you. That brightness will now overcome the recurring patterns that are meant to shake you and bake you. But we have a kingdom that came in 70 AD. We have a kingdom that cannot be shaken.
That's right. Once you come to conclusion on it, once you realize, okay, this entire thing is the full duty of man. This is all about the full duty of man. Okay, well, I got that. Well, then walk in it. Well, then you're done. The tribulation period is over for you. One more time. The tribulation period is over for you. Does it mean you will not have persecution? Different word. You might have persecution because your tribulation period is over. Huh?
Correct.
Yep. Because you are no longer in thalipsis, tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, and the wicked have been removed by the brightness of the king's coming. You are now sitting in a shalom that might actually get you killed.
That's beautiful. Yeah. In other words, that's beautiful. And in other words, now that you know Yahushua kept his promise, you have the patience and the endurance to go through thlipsis.
Yep.
And then to be strong and courageous.
Yep.
I.e., stand, having done all to stand some more. In other words, thlipsis is a repeating pattern. Roman control is a repeating pattern.
Yep.
But as you said, and so beautifully, we don't get to sit on the couch. So it's not that Yahusha didn't come, just the opposite. The brightness of the king's coming now gives us purpose and destiny and legacy to go through the maturing process.
That's exactly correct.
Right.
And you just said it perfectly. So it is like getting a note telling you that the apartment that you're living in was never your inheritance. And that anytime you want to, there's 50 acres over here that you can go build on. And you're like, what? Well, your dimensions just changed. Your whole experience in this life just changed by that one notice you got in the mail telling you, what did I inherit? I got what now? Some of you are figuring out that your bills are all prepaid, that the Federal Reserve doesn't work the way you think it does. It's not a bank the way you thought it was. It's a transfer agent of all securities. If you knew what a security was, you wouldn't be so scared of that. But because they didn't educate you that way, instead they educated you to keep you outside with ignorance. What did he tell you? My people perish for lack of knowledge. What happens when you get the right knowledge? Suddenly things are a little easier for you. Why?
So
you're filling out the right papers, right? That's all I'm saying. So it's as simple sometimes as knowing the right thing. And a word from an apostle, a sholiach, who tells you, here's the truth, and it flips your thalipsis. It changes your thinking process, and you walk right through thalipsis. Hello? Say thank you, Father, for the sholiach.
Praise Yah, praise Yahuwah. So let me ask you a question. So, because of these recurring patterns,
Yeah.
what is in your view, knowing the patterns, the end of this? Is it we're looking at a 6 month deal, 4 weeks? Doesn't matter,
They've been telling you.
unless your son or your daughter's killed in it, then it matters. But
Been telling you since 2018. They've been telling you. So what are we at? 7, 8 years now since they've been telling you. Where we go one, we go all. They've been saying this in the QAnons and all this stuff. Where we go one, we go all. Okay, now I got you all right here with me. Okay, that comes from a movie called White Squall, where they went to the edge of oblivion, and then they all united and came together and overcome. Where we go one, we go all. Do you get it? All right.
Tower
So
of
the plan is
Babel,
trust the
Tower of
plan.
Babel,
Trust the plan.
which nobody has. Right.
Give me a break. So here's what we're doing. We're doing the go to the edge of oblivion. It's the plan, grand plan. They keep doing this. Edge of oblivion. They think they're going to take over the new world. And Yuho always intervenes. Always. Always, every single time, not one exception. He always intervenes. Blows up their whole program. You're looking at the Earth is the graveyard of every New World Order that thought they were going to run the thing, and he went and said, nah, not today. Earth is literally the graveyard of every one of their previous attempts at the same stupidity. So we're watching the exact same graveyard making stupid that we've seen in every previous generation.
But in layman's terms, how does this end? What's going on now?
Noah's Ark. Always does. Always
I'm talking about this particular war that's going on.
Okay, figuratively, I meant Noah's Ark. It always ends up with a remnant in a small place, a narrow number, always surviving, enduring, what have you. This is going to be a war. We're going to have nasty loss of life. We're going to do the same thing they did. They're repeating the same thing. They're going to kill probably a third of mankind with this nonsense. They're not done. They don't have the bloodthirst is not out of them.
But you don't see a prolonged war, right? That's going on now.
They're trying to avoid it. I think one thing that I saw in the actions of the Trump administration in the surgical strikes, this is 2 times that I've watched this now. So they're definitely sending a message. So now they've removed Maduro. They did not blow up Venezuela. They removed Maduro. That's interesting. With the expectation that the Venezuelan people would do the rest of the work. So they're kind of waiting for that now. They've now done the same thing with the Ayatollah, right? So that's 2 leaders that they have either eliminated or arrested. And then once again, expecting the people. So much the message. Oh, Iran, rise up and take back your country, right? So again, at least the thought process seems to be that we're liberators and all we got to do is remove this bad guy and you guys will take care of the rest. And we're, I guess, going to watch and see if that ends up being the case. I think you just made 2 big enemy groups. I think you just made a big enemy group in Southern America, and I think you made a big enemy group in the Middle East. So isn't
that how the Bolsheviks came to power?
I think this is exactly.
We're going to remove the czar. It's good. The people will rise up and remove the czar.
And next thing you know, watch what happens. So when that occurred, 16 to as many as 50 million, depending upon who you believe and whose numbers you count, be somewhere between 15 and 50 million people died because of the high ground that was established. People thought they had the high ground, right? So they can kill with impunity. This is a horrible program, and we're about to walk into it. Here we go again.
So the only real for the believer, because that's who we're called to minister to, the only real solution is keep your eyes on Yahushua, which sounds very cliche, but
the
really
people that seem to endure these countries unite.
That's the only real solution. That a remnant from all geographical locations become achad.
Yep,
and stay achad.
If you look back at this at a different epoch,
in other words, we're untouchable.
Yep.
In other words, as long as you and I keep Pesach together, as long as you and I keep Shavuot together, as long as you have one faith, one master, one baptism, one Father of all, above all, and in us all, Ephesians 4:4, this stuff can't touch us. And if we're required to bleed out for being different, that's fine. We have immediate honor and graduation. So it's a win-win
It is, but
by
you have to
not
see
being
why
caught up.
you do it.
By not being part of the remnant means learning how not to be caught up.
That's right.
Like when the news broke on Saturday, just as I was about to go to bed at 2:30 in the friggin' morning, just as I was about to go to bed and get some sleep, which I'm already struggling for sleep, we all are, this thing breaks out. So right there, I determined. Right there, I said, this thing, I'm not going to, I'll put it on to see more or less what's happening. And then I'm going to shut it off. I'm not going to watch it again till another half hour Sunday morning. No, I'm not going to let this, I am the remnant.
That's
This
right.
is not an excuse for me to get all fablungent, or all as a word you've heard that in New York, famished, fablungent, anxiety. I've got to run for lithium. I've got to run to my psychiatrist to calm my nerves. I refuse. As the remnant, let them do their stupid theater, political theater, naval theater, all that theater, and it's Yahuwah's testing you and I to see, and I mean this humbly, to see if we're worthy to lead His people. Because if I'm preoccupied with that, I'm not worthy to lead His people.
I do think that you're making so many good points. I don't even know where to address them. But what comes to my mind though, and the thing that I would warn the people about, is that the United States of America has been a giant testing ground. All you have to do is take a look at the different ingredients in the food in the United States versus food in other countries, and you will see it for yourself. You don't need us to tell you that. That's just common sense. Okay. European imperial thinking has made the United States basically testing ground for all kinds of things. And there's also the belief among certain people that there are too many people on earth. So they're using Bible prophecy, they're using various things to accomplish some of their own agendas. It doesn't make any difference why it happens. The fact is it's going to happen, or it's happening. And mass loss of life has already been increasing. We saw the persecution level, which used to be 100,000 lives a year. That's the number it used to be. If you do the math, that's one person every 5 minutes who loses their life. Okay. Under persecution, that number is now 300,000 per year.
When you say persecution, well, what are we referring to?
We're talking about death by persecution.
Persecution for Messiah, or just general persecution?
For Mashiach, yes. A believer in Mashiach in whatever way they knew him, in whatever name they know him. Okay. So I'm going to broaden it by that definition. So we have 100,000. We used to have 100,000 a year that were losing their life per year. And now it's 300,000. The number is going up. So we're already seeing an increase of massive levels of persecution of those who follow Mashiach, right? You're also seeing massive levels of infiltration of everything from New Age to occult practices that infiltrated from the inside. So you have outside attack and internal attack. All of this is coordinated. So one of the things that we're seeing, again, we've seen this in every era, was a contamination of the true, while at the same time bringing in their superimposed state or dominion. And in between is the crushed remnant that has to find the narrow path through, find Noah's Ark, find, the caves to go to, whatever it is that Yahuwah does in that era that takes those people to a way of escape. It's never easy. It's always been difficult. And this is why we encourage everyone to find their fold, get into Shabbat, and get into Pesach, get into gathering together with your brethren, because it's not just about, bake sales and friends. It may be literally life and death. I'm going to tell you right now, people in Iran,
you're right.
The remnant in Iran, they're counting on each other right now for food, for all kinds of things. They're living differently now, right now, this minute, because their country is in a different state. That could happen anywhere.
When we see stuff like this, like we see now in the Middle East, it is reinforcing, is Yahuwah reinforcing that there are certain cities of refuge where His Kadosh name and His altar is. Not just assembly. No, it's more than assembly. These are the ordained cities of refuge to keep our heart and mind stayed upon him. Isaiah
I do
20,
believe that there are places
Isaiah,
of
Isaiah
refuge.
26:3. Perfect peace
Mhm.
has him whose mind is stayed upon him. So the challenge for us in these kind of times where the world is literally coming apart from anxiety and fear, that we have these cities of refuge. So like New Kingdom in Arizona is
That's
not
right.
just, oh, it's Peter and Mindy's group. No, it's a city of refuge.
And we see it. Maybe not right now. Maybe there's nobody cares, right? Because you're all comfy and good. Let a few things blow up and we'll talk again.
They're
We're
blowing up
being set
now.
up, folks. It's a setup from the get up. I went around this country in 1999, delivered a word to 40 cities with a jar of brimstone. I stunk like brimstone. 40 cities. Couldn't do it today. They'd never let me through the airports. A jar, this big, a big mayonnaise jar full of brimstone, just to talk about the word he gave me for this nation. 20 years later, we end up with COVID. We end up with the judgments beginning to fall. This nation is struggling to survive. It's on life support.
And
And
it's
on
and,
top of that, it's
and it's
taking on fights it doesn't belong in.
it's getting worse is because of our special ally. We have a special. We don't just have an ally.
Fucking what's left of life.
We have a
buddy.
special ally, the modern state of Theodore Herzl, Israel. They're so special that we're willing to do whatever they tell us to do, whenever they tell us to do it, regardless of the benefits to the good old US of A. We have a special ally. Oh, not just a friend. No, we have and we got to funnel $350 billion a year. Well, while I just had a couple go to the emergency room, okay, listen to me, and they got a bill for $24,000. They were there for 1 day, 2 days. When are you going to fix that, Mr. President and Mrs. President? No,
I can't.
not until we take care of our special friend. First, we got to take care of our special friend.
If they were to, one of the things that I think people found out, especially those that went into government with idealism in their minds, I think about Bongino and all these people, and they end up leaving, and Taylor Green and all these people with these. Listen, you're trying to turn a machinery that wasn't meant to be run efficiently. It wasn't built that way. It was built to rob. It was built to steal. It was built to destroy. You would have to rebuild completely, and not on founded buildings. Just saying. You'd have to start all over again, and maybe that's the best thing that America finally comes to, is that we can't fix this broken idea. We need to bring together a new one. Maybe that's where we're really headed, but the road there will be a difficult one. So the lives that are at stake from the east of the Mississippi, 80% of America's population lives east of the Mississippi River. 80%. That makes an awful big target. And so I do believe that we're going to see loss of life. I think this is a very dangerous time period for everybody. This is, again, a premium. Once again, a premium is being put on your fold. What a shock.
Okay.
A premium is being put on being united with the household.
Before we move on to something else, Benjamin Netanyahu, Benjamin, not from Yahoo, visited the United States from January until the end of February 7 times that we know. Now, this is what we know. Let's assume between 7 and 8. Come on, Peter. We are moving on his behest. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but assuming Iran could reach the shores of the United States,
right?
That means Israel pulled us into an attack on the homeland.
No, this is a real reality. You just
do I visit you? Do I visit you 8 times a month? If I do, we're planning something. If I'm visiting you 8 times a month, I'm planning. You and I are planning something.
Mm-hmm. 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 That's right. So this is a big reality that we're now facing. I think a lot of red hat wearing people put their red hats down. I think a lot of people they realized that what the follow the plan meant. Where we go one, we go all. Listen to the thinking there, guys. Is that where in that is the remnant? Where we go one, we go all. Really, really, guys.
And everybody's focused in on the pedophile thing and
Which is great. It's a
wait,
good
wait,
thing to
wait,
focus on for
the
a minute.
Epstein file. But lo and behold, we find out why. Okay, let's take a step back. Why is Israel all over the Epstein files? Why was a former prime minister of Israel his main client? What I'm trying to say is, and I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm anti-modern criminal activity of Israel. Everywhere you turn, you find the Kennedy assassination, Jeffrey Epstein. Everywhere I'm not talking about the Rothschilds and the bankers. No, I'm talking about the modern state of Israel. It's crazy. So this pedophile ring, by the way, there's the immunity. This pedophile ring, you know where they find the immunity? But there's no Knesset investigation. You know the answer to that. They run if they start being persecuted by the non-justice department under Pam bondage. Okay, guess where they're going to run, brother? Why? How come they're not running to Bahrain? How come they're not running? How come they're not running to Dubai?
Look, we know why. You know, remember the movie The Untouchables? You ever see that movie?
No, because I'm not a big movie buff, but I'm all ears.
Never bring a knife to a gunfight. Remember Sean Connery, me back there, and Kevin Costner played the Untouchables. Well, there was a scene back there. I'm dating myself a bit, but they're trying to get Al Capone, you know, and Kevin Costner, he's real naive. He doesn't know anything, and he goes, and of course, Sean Connery, he's playing the old Irish salty cop, you know, that's been on the beat for 30 years. He knows everything, knows everybody. And he's like, the whole scene is about going where they already know where the bootlegging is happening. It ain't about finding them. They know exactly where they are. That's how you're prepared to do what it takes. You know, that's the whole point of that scene was, are you prepared for what it's going to take you to go get these bad guys? It isn't about finding them. We already knew where they were. Oh, come on. It's not about figuring out who's guilty. Oh, goodness, this parade show. Let's do a congressional hearing. No, it's called cops with badges and handcuffs. Really simple, not a big deal. If it were just Joe Blow, the Joe Blow would already be in prison. So why isn't that happening? You already know why. That has to end. That right there. The thing that there's rules for thee and not rules for me, that's got to go.
One side note, isn't it interesting that the Ayatollah Khamenei, and by the way, people can't pronounce it. They say Khomeini. That's not Khomeini. Khomeini is the guy that he succeeded. Okay, it's Khamenei. Americans see a K and they go Khomeini. That's not Khomeini. All right, but isn't it interesting that Khamenei was killed on Purim? The biblical, the Zadokite Purim
made that call
was the 14th day of the 12th month, which was what? Let me just check just to make sure I'm the 14th. Here it is. This is your calendar. The 14th day, February 28th, was when the leader of Iran, could be another modern Haman comparison. Haman was killed on Purim, not the rabbinical Purim, because that doesn't fit, but Khamenei was killed on the biblical Purim.
They like to do that, by the way. It's as if they know the right dates, and you watch the two calendars or the multiple calendars. And it's very interesting if you do that.
They do their stuff on the real calendar.
I know. That's what I keep saying. I'm like, you guys know what time it is. You just play these games, man.
I wonder who we're talking about. I wonder, is it the same country that's asking us to fight their wars? $350 billion a year is not enough. Oh, that's not enough. More money. More money.
How do you argue it?
We need to bomb more hospitals. We need to bomb more hospitals. And we wonder why everybody's against Israel. Well, dude, in the 1950s, everybody wasn't against Israel. Y'all did it to yourself.
I definitely think that that you're pointing at something that a lot of Americans today are now asking again. And it's, again, not about having special relationships or allies. It's about, are we over our skis? have we gone too far? I think the answer is a definite yes, in my opinion. So I do believe that we need to prayerfully start to pull hard on all of these things that we're seeing. And this is where the real power is, guys. It's not protesting, it's not writing letters. The real power is in the Ruach. I want to remind you that we do have
Peter,
Passover coming up.
Peter, one thing. How do you feel about a country where abortion is fully legal? They're fully legal. In this country, it's state by state. Okay, in that country, Israel, is fully legal. Matter of fact, the government can force you to get an abortion. By the way, if you don't abide, the government can force you. It is fully legal, and they can force you to get an abortion.
We are very pro-life, so we don't agree with any of that. So I mean that came from the Nephilim. So that's
and as uncomfortable it is, and I know you want to move on to Pesach, as uncomfortable as it is, Tucker Carlson and others are bringing up a point. Okay, Jews, Muslims, okay, we get it. What about the Palestinian Christians? Do you know they are our brothers and sisters in the Messiah?
That's right. How come they don't count?
How come they don't count? Do you know how they're mistreated? Ooh. They get it from all sides. They get it from the Muslims, and they get it from the Jews. What about the Palestinian Christians? And no matter what you think of Tucker Carlson, the man brought it out. And by the way, in that you mentioned the Mike Huckabee interview, they caught him in his own craftiness. You know what he actually said? He said the Jews basically are saved by Moses, and the Gentiles are saved by Christ. We know that as John Hagee type dual covenant theology, meaning Yahuwah didn't love the world. He loved the Gentile part of the world, because all the Jews get saved by believing in Moses' Torah. See, you notice Huckabee let that slip. So we found out now that he's not an evangelical as we think of Messiah as the only way.
So much infiltration into the doctrines. So many things that through the centuries they did not see. There's a reason why there was a 95 Theses nailed to the Wittenberg Church. There's a reason why there's been pushback through centuries, because they constantly keep pushing things that when you really dig, they're wrong. And there should have been 9,500 Theses nailed to the Wittenberg Church. Okay,
really,
really. Right. I think that we're all a little bit Martin Luther a little bit.
Eyes are opening.
Say, wait a minute. Well, here's my 95 points. What's your 95 points? Put them all together. We got 9,500 points.
Eyes are opening. Thankfully, eyes are, and it's hard for me because not only was I trained in my father didn't believe in Yahuwah. He didn't believe in scripture. He was a traditional Jew, but the tradition, he would kill you. He would take your eyes out for Jewish tradition. He loved everything. So it's hard for me to come against what I was trained. But this is part of the work of the Spirit. You think I like talking about Israel? The state, the modern state. I have relatives there. I was brought up to love that country. But as a believer, I've got to, yes, the PLO and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and yes, they're murderers, but so are my people. And only with the eyes of the Spirit do you have the compulsion to be an equitable broker and not rely on bloodline theology to form your position.
Well, you raised a really good point. I think Koreans are looking at their people. I think Chinese are looking at their people. I think the Japanese are looking at their people. Mexicans right now are looking at their people. I think Americans right now are going, hey, some of our people need our act together. I think all of us need to do a review. There's a bunch of Australians right now going, our people are the ones that locked us in and did some of this to us. So our enemies a lot of times are our people, our own people within our own areas. Mashiach was clear: the enemies of a man will be the members of his own household.
But one thing, we're talking about the cities of refuge, and I think you do the same thing. I'm guessing. I don't know this for a fact. When our people get together in the city of refuge, like Shabbat, we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about, the Palestinians, Israel. No, that's Kadosh. The day is Kadosh. If it comes up, I or one of my members, we have a quick shift mode. We say, "How about them Cowboys?" Like, the Dallas Cowboys. Whenever it gets into politics, because it's the Shabbat, it's Kadosh, and this is a city of refuge. So for Monday morning is one thing, but this conversation would not take place in the gates on Shabbat or on the Moadim, because somebody will say, change of subject. How about the Cowboys? It's a joke. It's kind of like a little joke. So when the conversation is getting where it shouldn't, we go, hey, how about them Cowboys?
I agree with that. We use Shabbat as a real catch up time. When I'm recording this way, and now next week I'll be in the main room, but when I get over there and hang out and just spend time, the topics can range. We're usually catching up on things we're working on throughout the week, and catching up on life. And even though we live together, we don't often see each other because we're busy. So that's a big part of Shabbat, is reconnecting and remembering why we're working together, what the together is about. So our conversations tend to be about our mission, what happened that week, what we're working toward or what's coming up. So that tends to be most of our topical. So it's interesting you brought that up, because politics really generally don't, they might do a flyby, but generally not too heavy duty.
You wanted to mention something about Pesach?
Yes, that you're going to see more alliance activity there on Pesach. We're going to be coordinating, and we'll be sharing more about that as the month goes by, because we've got about a month till Passover right now. So hang in there with us, and we look forward to gathering together with those that do keep the commandments and keep the Pesach celebration that we are commanded to keep each year. And so we want to coordinate with this. Not only are we coordinating with Yati, but we invite other ministries and home groups and home fellowships to connect in. I think it's a beautiful way of us staying united, even though you're celebrating in various places, and you might be just in your homes. A great way for us to stay connected.
It sends a very powerful message.
It does. And I can't tell you how much I truly, this is the grandpa in me, right? This is the papa in me. I just love your pictures. I love your gatherings. I love seeing, I just love being a fly on the wall, kind of, just kind of like, oh, just walk around and going, oh, and look at that one. Oh, look at that. And there's something about that really.
We're the same. We're the same way. When we see you guys
touching. And so I don't care if you don't want to hear a word from me. That's fine. I don't even care. I just want you guys to get together.
So what I suggested to Apostle Peter is that either for Pesach, 1 second, either for Pesach or the day after, we do a little bit of a joint service together. Because last few times we did it, it was awesome, and
yeah,
and
I want to do the next. The Pesach is the Passover is what it is, but the first day of unleavened bread, if I remember right, that was a highlight for me. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'd like to do that again. Yep. You want to take a couple of quick questions, or?
Well, we don't seem to have many here, so I don't see any questions on here unless I'm missing something. So unless people have any questions, I think we might have
we scared everybody.
Thought processes there along the way.
We scared everybody.
A conversation, guys, that is a bit sensitive. I think that it's difficult on the one hand to talk about some of these topics because of the way that they've been conflated, and it's been intentionally conflated to make it difficult to talk about. But the fact is that we do support our people, our brethren, those that are in the areas that are under attack, and it may be us next week.
Right.
So let's pray one for another.
Make no apologies. Some things have to be talked about, and if we will judge angels, and we are judging angels, then we need to judge, sadly, the motives and the actions, not the motives, but the actions of politicians, and that's the way it is. And I don't apologize.
I am disappointed.
I don't apologize for this broadcast. I don't apologize for the topic.
No, we don't apologize.
I'm sent from heaven. I can't speak for anybody else. when I speak, I believe that I have the authority of the King of Kings. That's just who I am. And if that rubs you the wrong way, just find a podcast where they distribute Q-tips so you can tickle and clean your ears at the same time.
Well, here and the summary is this: he who began a good work will be faithful to complete it.
Amen.
So let us be found faithful in our walk. Let us be found faithful to pray and walk together without strife and
Amen.
division. And let us continue to honor Yahuwah in all that we do. And we will then only be those who with our eyes see the recompense of the wicked.
Amen. Baruch Hashem Yehovah. Shalom, people. Shalom, friends.